I'm Kareem Rae, your host at the One Soccer Nation podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Jordan Wilson. Jordan, thank you so much for taking the time today. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Thanks for having me, brother. I'm Jordan Wilson. I guess I'll say ex-York United player, current One Soccer analyst. Yeah,
Amazing. A Canadian legend uh,
nah, I can't even say
within the
that.
game within Canada. It's great to have you on. It's a full circle moment, as mentioned. Looking forward to having you on. But one of my
Yeah,
favorite
no, absolutely.
yeah, one of my favorite questions to ask is how did you get involved in the beautiful game?
I think my dad deserves credit for this, short and sweet. Jamaican roots, but grew up in England, and I guess just had a time where football looked a lot different. There weren't so many people that had melanin that were on the pitch. And I guess when he moved here in his early 20s and he had two boys, yeah, he just put the ball at the feet real quick. And my brother, my older brother, 5 years older than me, played and loved it, but he also loved basketball. But for me, it was just like love at first sight, and I didn't stop. I was the type of kid that was 2 years old trying to run on my brother's football pitch and play. Like you just couldn't keep the ball away from me. It was the only thing when I was young that brought me peace. But yeah, I'd say my dad was the first one to put the ball on my feet, and then ever since then, I didn't stop. I had like a ball in my locker at high school just to like juggle and decompress when life seemed stressful. I was just yeah, just footy. Footy was the thing that saved me.
That's amazing. So, growing up in Ontario, playing ball in Canada, it's the pathway to pro is not that clear. So was it, when you were growing up playing, were you always looking at going pro, or were you just, as you said, it was your piece, something fun,
Yeah.
you were taking it day by day?
Yeah, a bit of both. It was my piece, but I think around 12 or my brother always recounts it because I can't really remember, but I remember telling him that like I want to play pro one day, I want to go to Europe, I want to like make sure that football is like my full-time thing, it's my full-time job. And this was at a time where like a lot of players, yeah, you maybe had like the Julian de Guzmans, like the outliers that would play, but there weren't so many Canadians. Not that we weren't talented, but that's why even today, like ex-coach of mine, Jimmy Brennan, I'm just like when we talk and chop it up, I'm like he's a legend in the game. Like that's a legend that I look forward to because he made it during a time where Canadians were talented, but there was just no outlet, like literally zero outlet to try to go and make it and play pro. So, yeah, I think for me, I knew I wanted to. I just didn't know the blueprint or the path. Both my parents are real serious about education and educators in their own right. Um, yeah, both of them. My dad works for Dufferin Imperial School Board, my mom Toronto District. So it's like that was big for them to have me graduate and get an education. But I was like, once I get the stuff that I needed to get, I was like, I want to play. I want to just play the game that I love for as long as I can. And but that's the beauty about footy. It just leads you to so many avenues in different ways and different connections and people I know all across the world. It's just because of this beautiful game. So I always knew I wanted to play though. Absolutely.
For sure. So you attended Cornerstone University. You saw earning multiple accolades, including being a four-time All WHAC first team selectee. How did, college soccer influence your development both on and off the field?
I think it was the players and the people that I was with. Like I came in with such a good class. I believe there was like 14 freshmen,
Yeah.
and we were all really good. I remember at the time as well, like Mr. Michigan was at our school, Jacob Stanko. This guy was like everything you need in a football. He was strong, he was fast, he had great feet. My roommate, dear friend, Matthew Osorio, Jonathan Osorio's cousin, was my roommate and friend at the time at the school. Um, Kwabi Boateng from up here went to Campion, grew up playing against him like he was there for a bit. Tristan Esprit as well. He was a good friend, still is a good friend of mine that was there. I just had like a good group, guys that like wanted to ball, guys that just wanted to improve, and then the coaching staff. I mean, that's what kept me at that small NAIA school in Michigan for so long. That's what made me graduate is Mark Bell and Steve Herdsman, which were the head coach and assistant coach. And Steve Herdsman was played for Columbus Crew, Colorado Rapids, still to this day fastest man I know. but just like taught me how to ping a ball, taught me how to be a dominant defender, good midfielder, to have a balanced game. He poured into me like no other. He was like dad, big brother, coach all in one. So some of the lessons that he taught me, they weren't even on the pitch. So I think I had such a unique experience because I was young and there was a lot maybe expected of me on the pitch. But as I got there, I think people invested more in me as a person and as a human being. And I really took to that and took off with that. I always say if I played pro at 18, I would have had a 2-year career. But like going when I did or playing when I did at 23 was only because I had the time to develop, make mistakes, like be a better person by 23. And so those years and those people that were involved are instrumental to my career and what I've done.
For sure. When you say signing at 23, sometimes people think that's a bit too old or
Yeah,
too.
people said old. Absolutely, for sure. Like late, old, I missed the boat. I heard it all for sure. And I try to tell young players now too, like that's just an opinion, you know? Like yeah, you can definitely carve your own way.
For sure. So, I mean, obviously, you got to be strong mentally to be able to not listen to outside voices. So, what advice would you share with young players now to stay strong mentally and stay focused on their goal?
Um, like my advice is always rooted in like how bad you want it and how much are you willing to give up. And I think sometimes wanting it too much and that's like your only thing that you think about could be detrimental. I think like even when I think about my career, what I'm most proud about is that I didn't give up, but I also knew when to like readjust. For example, like I was living on my own in England and then moved to Denmark for a bit. And then I was injured and literally had no money. And I was like, I called my mom in August. I was like, Mom, like, can you send me a ticket? Like I'm coming home. And I remember saying to her at the airport, like, I'm coming home for now. Like, I'm gonna go back, but I just need to like make more money, get my body right, get my mind right. I graduated in December, and then 2 weeks later, I was on a plane. And from December to August, I was just hustling, grinding, literally did, like living with family, living on my own, just trying to make it. And I realized that like for that time being, I went too hard, and I maybe I bit off more than I could chew. Went home, worked, made some more money, set up a few things that I needed to for January, and then went at it again. I think a lot of people, what would have happened in August, they would have made a billion excuses, which I had like far more excuses or far like I had excuses to make or reasons why it didn't work. And they would say, yeah, like this coach didn't like me. Oh, they don't play Canadians. Oh, I had no money. All these things were true. But I just said, all right, well, I'm gonna go back home for 5 months and I'm going back. And I think a lot of people nowadays would just take the August and be like, yo, I tried and it didn't work, and then you're done. But it's like I guess there's two parts of it. For me, it's not the fact that I just stayed and try to play through because that was the wrong decision at the time. The right decision was to have a little bit of a break and catch that January window and try again. But I know people would have come back as well and just like been with their homies, like the money that you made, you wanted to save. Maybe you're checking whoever you're checking, and like your dream would have been put on the back burner. But I think having the focus to be like, this is what I want, and I'm still not ready for it, but this is where I want to get to, and have discipline to actually work to that. That's like the part that I'm most grateful about in my career is I was always able to put myself first and what I really wanted first. And that's why, yeah, that mental fortitude is what I like pride myself on.
For sure. I mean, it's not what you just described is not something easy to do. You also mentioned the distractions that could possibly pull you away from the dream, but also, share a little bit about, um, was this overseas that you were going back and forth between, or was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like for me, for example, one of my biggest obstacles that I came across, and not all players are going to know this growing up, so which I was curious to know, did you know that you needed a visa, or whether it was
Yeah.
a student visa or work visa to stay there longer and get paid for what you love to do?
So thankfully it worked out me being a younger brother and like figuring things out is that when my brother was getting ready to, because he's 5 years older than me, he went to he got a scholarship to the States and like was a very good footballer, big center back, but like also played ball his up until he was like 18 and then ended up choosing soccer. He was the type of guy that he was like, you know what, I might dabble like in the pro life. So I kind of knew that our dad being British, getting that passport was like important. Did that help me sign? It didn't. It helped me stay in Europe and not worry about like my next paycheck or what was going on. Like when I was in England, I was playing for literally £30 a week, like 12th division. It was like men's league, it was semi-pro, right? You can't even call that being a pro. Everyone had a full-time job. What are you doing on £30 a week? That's a meal, that's a meal and a half gone right there. So yeah, I knew that that helped me a little bit. That was something to like fall back on. And there's so many players here in Canada that maybe didn't have that. And that was a reason why they weren't able to stay in countries or to actually make their dreams come true. So I knew I had that to like lean back on. But it ended up in my career being something that I guess finally when I got signed, I didn't really need. Like playing in Denmark, I think Scandinavia is just a little bit more laxed in terms of rules. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
For sure. Yeah. So what about, could you share the time lapse or the timeline of each team that you played for in each year in the country?
Yeah, so I told you I graduated in 2013. Going into 2014, I went to England, and then that's when I said I was playing like 12th division for a team called Croydon FC. Croydon's in like the hood, like Southwest London. Um, Great time, great experience because I realized as like it was almost just the most humbling experience. I'm leaving Cornerstone University, which is Grand Rapids, Michigan. I graduated. I've been saying I'm going pro, and then I'm in England, and like I'm almost laughed at that I play pro, and that I'm trying to play pro, and I'm Canadian. And like I didn't go to a big university. I didn't play MLS. I didn't go to MLS Academy. So everyone's like literally would look at me and be like, "Who are you?" type thing, right? And this is 2014. So like Canada's not even on the map. It's not like now. Like if you can say you're Canadian, go to Europe now, and people will say Alfonso Davies, Jonathan David, Kyle Tejan. People will throw out names. The only one name people threw out when I went to Denmark is Atiba, and he's a god, lowercase g over there. Like he was that guy. But that's one guy that like we have. You know what I mean? So 2014, that was Croydon. I was just like cutting hair. I was like living with my family, like second cousins over there, just trying to make things work. And then I ended up going on a trial with a League Two team based off of a reference from I was training with the ex-pro Jamie Lawrence. He had like academy, well, not even academy, just basically a training session with all these like pros that are playing Championship, League One, some Prem players, but that were all in London. And I ended up like just networking, getting a friend to friend, saw my tape, like I met, and I was able to train with those guys. Long story short, he got me a trial at a League Two team, Southend United, and I went there, and I was playing there as a right back, and I did well, but I was not outstanding. There's definitely a gap in the level, especially when we played. I remember playing the U21 Tottenham. Whole team was black. These guys are disgusting. Like this, the nastiest like footballers I've ever seen like assembled. You know, I think they had one white guy, Harry Winks. Everyone else, they were just like everything you need in a football they had for their position. And I was like, yo, maybe I'm a bit out of my depths. Like I'm not horrible, but it's just like there's levels. And did that, but I met a guy there on trial and he was Danish, and he was like, "Your game, your profile, you do really well in Denmark." And from traveling and being with travel teams, I've been to Denmark a bunch of times and played against teams. And I was actually there was interest in a team when I was 18, Hobie Crew to go over there. So now I'm 23. I'm like, you know what, I might try it. So as I told you, I literally hopped on a plane, went there, got in touch with that guy's agent, and literally got injured the first day out of trial. And I was like, look, like. I have no energy to like push forward. Let me go home. So that was the time I went home from August 2014 to December 2014. Then 2015 was my year because that's when I went to Denmark, went on a bunch of trials. Everyone's like good, but not great. We like you, but we don't have the budget. All the excuses I heard, like, yeah, we already have a great right back. We have a CDM. Like, if you played center back, I'm like, I can play center back, but they're like, is that your primary position? Like, no, all that stuff. But then I finally went to a third tier team and just got minutes and got to play. And how I got signed with my club, they came to a former Prem player, Klaus Jensen, who is the coach and sporting director at the club I spent the 5 years with in Denmark. He was coming to see another player, an attacking player, and literally in the first minute of the game, their best player on the other team we were playing took a bigger touch, and I just laid into him. I got the ball, but I just did one of my like premium tackles, and he's like, "Who the heck is this guy?" And like, long story short, got talking, ended up coming out to see me, and I didn't notice at the time, and I was like starving. Like, was we got paid to play under the table with when we won, but it was like every 2 months you got paid. So I'd be playing games and not getting paid. If we lost, I knew I wasn't gonna get paid for that time. But the lump sum of money was coming like later on down the road. And it wasn't even big dollars, but I was just playing and grinding. And there's a story in that too, just to like never turn it off. And then yeah, I ended up getting a trial with the team I spent 5 years with and just like blossomed under them. But it was it was dark times like 2015 because I was playing and I was lying to my parents like, yeah, everything's blessed. I'm staying with a teammate. And I was just like grinding, like asking money from my best friend, my sister, just to like get by a little bit and trying to do odd jobs around what that I found. But yeah, it was the best time, but it was like some dark times as well.
For sure. There's definitely many stories there. But
For sure.
the grind builds you, builds character, builds strength, builds endurance. What would you say was the biggest um, upgrade? Probably not the best way to put it, but what would you say is the biggest enhancement in your life from those experiences that now it's, I mean, obviously, yeah, let me keep it simple. What would you say is the biggest enhancement that it's added to your life from those experiences?
I think a couple of things. I think, but they're all encompassing. I think they work together. One is that it sounds cheesy, but it's really true. Like if you feel it in your gut, if like not a feeling that like there's some people that are like, oh, I want to play pro because like I want Instagram followers, I want to make a lot of money. But if it's like your calling, like you're born to do it, whatever it might be, it could be painting, whatever. That's your calling. Understand that you might have to sacrifice and eat a little crap for it. But like if that is what your calling is, it's the most rewarding thing ever. So just stick to that. And I think for me, probably the life lesson I learned through all the ups and downs and the trials is just like it's worth it if it's your love, but it's okay to grind and like almost have it be rough because I think you can use that in every part of your life. Like now, even with my job that I have now, it's like it's not always glamorous, but if you want it, if it's something that you really believe that is yours, you got to work at it. You got to make sure that you put in the work, but that you claim what's yours. You know, I think a lot of people nowadays as well is like they talk about how bad they want something, but they would like to have it. It would be nice if someone set it up for you. It would be nice if you could just like hop in your car and go and get it. But like, are you willing to like go under tunnels and like dig and get a bit dirty, um, and almost be told no, and then like brush yourself off, and then be told no again, and then do it. So I think the biggest lesson is that if you really want something, like no one or nothing can stand in the way of that. You really just have to keep pushing and making sure that you check in with yourself and yeah, you know what you're worth and you know what you want to do to be successful.
Amazing. Yeah, I really appreciate that story, Jordan. I could relate to that in so many different ways from my personal experience along the journey. Um, but I think I want to comment on in regards to you having that UK citizenship. That's amazing. That always comes in handy.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, that's amazing. So um, let's transition into you coming back to Canada. How did that all come together?
There's a bit of luck, I would say. I think it wasn't my plan initially. It was just my contract was running out. We just basically survived like 7, 8 months of COVID. Probably more than ever, I miss my family. People in particular, my now wife, but at the time was just my girl, like my grandma. It was just a lot that happened. Like I was 28 and I was like, you know what? I want to move back home. Or not even so much. I was like, I want to try something new. So the club that I was with, I ended up getting promoted with, been with and seen like the best of times. And then when I was leaving, it was the worst of times, but in terms of being relegated. Um, But I just knew I needed to do something different. Like 5 years, over 150 appearances at a club, played CDM, I played center back. Like I went as far as I could in that city and at that club. So it was just time for something different. Different necessarily didn't mean at home. It just ended up working out for me that the time that I went or I came back home, it was the PI bubble, so all the teams are already playing, and I just finished because contracts were extended. The July, whatever is it, July 30th window or 31st window, ended up being extended, and I came home like for good in August. So they just went to the bubble. So I was like, I'm open to playing CPL, but I'm also like, I have no problem going back to Europe. But then I'm grateful at the time, like Angus McNabb, who's the CEO at York United, reached out. And I was literally a week away from going to, or a week before I was supposed to go to Forge for like a trial and like see the squad and be around them. But they had a COVID outbreak within the squad, so they weren't training for 4 days. And within that window, York offered me a deal. And I like the project. I like that a good friend and I used to play against Roger Thompson was there. Like Forge was already set up and they were already a dynasty, you know? Like I would go there and contribute, but like York was like a full new project, had the young players like Isaiah Johnston and like Max Ferrari. Like they needed guidance. They needed like someone to like come in and like, be a big brother and unk. And I was just so excited for the new project. Also to play under Jimmy Brennan and Paul Stalteri, like I was sold. These guys are icons in the game, and I love watching them as a kid. Soccer like AM and that Sportsnet and whatnot. So it was yeah, it was a dream come true to come back and just actually be at home. But COVID was a weird time because when I signed in like October for January, but I didn't play a game for York until like the end of June because of COVID. So it was like a very, very weird time.
Yeah. I mean, apologies if I missed it. What year was it that you came back? And,
So that was 2020 I came back, but I didn't play for York until 2021.
okay, got
Summer
it.
2021. So I came back summer 2020 and I didn't play my first minute for York until June 2021.
Okay, got it. So league started 2019, so about 3 years. You missed the
Yeah.
first years of the CPL, and then you
I
got
missed 2019 and I missed the first bubble and then I was a part of the second one.
okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, still really early stage of a brand new league, Canadians' first men's professional soccer league, in Canada. Um, Getting in on the second year. If you're able to share a little bit about like behind the scenes in regards to like specifically league startup, um, what your thoughts are. Yeah, let's start there. Like if you could share any behind the scenes with, a league starting. It's basically history in Canada, right? Canada's soccer.
Yeah, for sure.
If you could
I
share some
think
insights on, the startup of the league and your experience.
people always talk about like what's wrong with something or what's missing. But I just love to focus on the brand of football that's played in the Canadian Premier League and like the talent and like the goals that are scored and like the exciting games that happen and like the product, the actual product of players, coaches, staff, clubs alike, stadium venues is for me like fantastic. Like the moments we just saw one, even though it's not in the CPL, but a CPL team beating Pumas, and like the goal that scored to 2-1 is like a golazo. Like it's as good as you can get, as big as a stage you can get in the 80th minute of a game of a first leg. I guess the behind the scenes, yeah, that's just something that I'll probably always big up is just the fact that like this brand, like I had the beauty and honor to play in the league for 2 years and to see players, and then now covering it for the third year. Um, it's just great to see like a league by Canadians for Canadians and people that have taken off and like what they're doing in the game. It's not even so much just players turning into coaches and me and like the analyst room. Like there are viable jobs now in the soccer ecosystem that people could have, and I just think that's like the most beautiful thing. So yeah, of course there's areas to improve. Of course we want to see more teams in different markets. I would love for this league to be at a nice little 12 or 14. But the fact that people are making money and having a living doing the game that they love in Canada is great because I come from a time where that just wasn't an option. So many people do, right? If you're like born in 95 and up, that's just not a world that you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I was born in the 2000s. So when I was growing up, I was always looking outside, right?
Yeah.
2019. So 2018, I went to England for 6 weeks, pilot trip. 2019, I was in France for 3 months. Kind of that similar experience that you were having in Denmark, or
Yeah.
England. And then before I went to France, I had to make a decision whether I was going to go to the CPL trials or go to France. I was like, do I go to something that's just starting up, or do I go to Europe that's already established? And I chose France. But again,
Yeah.
to the stakeholders and investors that have created the CPL, I think it's huge. It's amazing. It's something I wish I took the opportunity to actually take back in 2019, to be honest. But to see the game evolve here in Canada is amazing because now anybody for the next generation, they have actually something to look up to and a bit more clear path of how to go pro in Canada in their backyard.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
With saying that, transition. We spoke about this a little bit offline, but I guess it'd be nice to get a bit more clarity and a bit more of the story. Um, you know, were you always thinking like the transition of soccer after playing pro is not
Yeah.
easy and is not always something that players are thinking about. So for you, were
No,
you,
very difficult.
yeah. So for you, were you always thinking about transitioning into the role that you have, or was it a unique opportunity that had come across your
I guess a bit of both. It was unique. It took a lot of like reflection and a bit of networking, but I think for me, growing up, I wanted to be a teacher. A part of me still wants to, right? Like I love just I love investing like into people's lives, but I think like nothing's better than like the next generation. And I just get along with kids. Like I'm a big kid at heart, right? So whether it be like grade ones or like grade 12s, like I understand people, right? And I could easily go back to like how they are at that stage. Like if it's a 6-year old or a 16-year old, I remember, or at least it feels like I can remember those emotions like very clearly and vividly. So I love like connecting with them. But I think with my job, it literally came from, again, like there wouldn't be me in this role without obviously the league because it's about representation, like seeing people that were in those positions doing and calling games and analyzing all the stuff that we're doing. I was like, once I moved back home, I'm like, I would love to do that. I'd love to be in a position to speak about players and talk about the game in like a positive light and have my spin on it. So I guess for me, it was unique because I thought when I'm done playing, I would love to do that, but I also need to like put in the work now to make that a reality. And I started doing that like when in 2021 when York, we lost to Forge in the semifinal. Like I already made connections to come into the studio if we lost or if we didn't go to the finals. I mean, we ended up not going, but I just wanted to like make sure that I was like present. And honestly, shout out to the One Soccer family, specifically Andy Petrillo, because she was just like gave me I was like, I want the fast course. Like I want to like know what it's like. And she just said like little things, like make sure your IFB's in and you actually hear what people are saying in your ear. Like don't do any shortcuts. And I just had people investing in me. But most importantly, I wanted to do. I was like, this is a career I could see myself doing. I just have to put in the work. Same with like footy. It's like when your left foot's bad, it's like you could keep cutting on your right, or you could start swinging with your left foot and like hitting little passes, hitting 20-yard passes. And then all of a sudden, you see your player open that's 40 yards away, and there's someone on your right and pressing you, and you just hit it. It just happens naturally because you've been working on it. So I just wanted to put in that work. I didn't think I would retire when I did at 30, literally 2 years later before I made that contract. Well, I guess a year and a half later before I made that connection, but it just worked out. It was like in God's plan that it just happened that way. But it was unique because if you asked me as a kid to do the job that I do now, I would say that was impossible. To cover Canadian soccer exclusively in Canada, like that's a joke, man. Like there's no way that's actually my job, but that's just goes to show how far we've come as well.
Absolutely. What would you say was the hardest challenge for you in your position in regards to adjusting to?
I'll say just my unique position was that I could still play. Like I think I like that I walked away on my own accord. Like it was, hey, come back for another season, or like go into this new world that I really feel like is calling me and I would be good at. But like the amount of times going to 2023, and I was like, man, I could still hit like a 50-yard diag. Like, yeah, okay. And for me, it goes quick. You're not like game fit if you're off for a month. I don't care who you are. Like, you still have to go and like, get fit again. But like the default setting of who I am, I was like, yeah, like I'm okay to go. I think that was the hardest part to like kind of leave that world behind. Because if I was injured or like both my ACLs pop, God forbid, it was like I physically can't go and play. But when I like, even now, when I feel good and there's days where I'm like training, I'm like, ugh, that feeling just will never go away because there's nothing like competing for me. There's nothing like the week of training, where you have a game on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and like everything is just geared up to that. How you eat, sleep, like everything is about the game and just the high of a win where you grind and you ran 12K and you win 2-1 or whatever it is at home and you're with your dogs. Nothing's better than that. Like I can't replicate that type of feeling. Once you get it, it's so addicting, right? So even I think about too, like the games where you don't play your best and you have to wait a whole week to redeem yourself. Just that like anticipation, that yearning to be better. I mean, yeah, like as a footballer, there's nothing like those feelings, road trip with the man them, just cracking jokes, like banter in the locker room. Like that's just something you have work environment, you have people that you like. And I'm blessed to have people that I really enjoy and we get along, we crack jokes, but it's nothing like a locker room. Like the locker room vibe is unprecedented, man. Like that is like the best thing in the world. You're traveling with your boys, you're battling with them, like you have issues within a team that you have to resolve. Like you're truly a family, right? Away from your family, but you're trying to go for your common good. And I always tell footballers you don't have the same locker room ever. There's a new player coming, someone going, someone retiring, someone just starting out. So it's just like all those dynamics that play into a room. Best feeling ever.
Yeah. No, even when we when I ran into you for the first time meeting you in person, about, I think it was like last week Tuesday, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were playing together, but I was playing against you. And the banter was coming out. I was like, he still has it in him, man. He still has it in him.
Bro, it doesn't stop. Like it's like the thing is, it's like a dial for me. Like I have a hard time. I've always had a hard time playing like 70%, but I also realize now I can't just like get off the couch and then go and like try to play a 90. Like that's just not how this works, right? So it's like finding the moments to really compete. And it's just tough because when it's your job every day, it's like you don't take days off from training. You just train. Like matches, okay, your ankle hurts a little bit, you play. But then now when you retire, there's just nothing like that competitive edge. I'm not trying to play like Monopoly with the wifey and like I'm coming with that pro energy. Like it just doesn't match up to me. Like footy is made to be played a certain way, and that's like for me the only realm where I can play that way. Everything else, like I'm not gonna go and play like Pop-O-Matic Trouble with my son and like slapping pegs away and talking smack. Like I couldn't do that. But footy is where that lives. That's where you get to do all the things you want to do and say all the things you want to say, good, bad, or ugly. But that's the space for it.
Yeah, for sure. No, it was good. It was good. Um, there's something I was gonna ask and it just left my mind.
Nah, don't worry, I'll come back.
Um, oh, I was gonna say I really appreciate your um like when I watched I watched a few clips of One Soccer and with clips that you're in as well. And I really appreciate your style of I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but your style of um communication, right? Because it's still within the dialogue or the sound of per se One Soccer or that media sound, but also that Jordan, like that I don't know if you're from Mississauga or Brampton, but that
The
tone,
saga. Yeah, no, I hear you. for
you still
sure.
had that little, you still had a little tone into it, you know?
Nah, I hear you.
Even
It's
right now,
it's
you're doing
it's it's so tough because
it.
like I'm Saga like through and through, but like it's just like anything in the GTA, like cousins in Brampton, your boys are in Brampton, like got certain mans are from ends like Toronto. Like you just we're all affiliated in some
Okay.
way, like you know, and you almost carry that when you leave. Like that's just what it is. You go to a country in Europe. If I saw someone with like a Blue Jays hat on, like immediately, like Toronto, GTA, it just comes out naturally. Or like as soon as you touch down home, like that's just what it is. I find it very difficult as someone I got into this business, like the second I start preaching, I've lost it. And like I've lost the reason why I'm doing it. Like the reason that you cover the beautiful game is because like you love it. And like the reason why you want to talk about players and circumstances is because you want to like give the right light and attention to those type of players.
Mm.
Right? So obviously if someone plays crap, players know that more than anyone. And anyone who gets like um upset when like people call that out. I'm like, if you're really being a pro, you know when you don't do your best. You know when you're poor. Like I'll never come for a man's head and be like, oh, this guy needs to retire or he needs to get fired. Like it's not those. But you know as a professional when you don't do your best. I just feel like I'm not doing my job if I try to be someone else. Like I
Mm.
have to be who I am and I can't help but view the game the way that I do. And all the things that have made me me have to do with the game. Like the fact that I grew up with Jamaican parents and like, you know how many parents on the sideline gave me yellow cards because they're like, yo, kick him down, like, no, let him run. Like that's just the way I play or like the way I look at the game now. So I can't like not bring that into how I speak about it and be someone else because it's disingenuous at that point.
Yeah, it's real. I really appreciate that.
Nah, thank you for saying that though, bro.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear.
It's one of the things I first identified like right away. I was like, okay, like that, like I appreciate that because you're not I was gonna share this offline, but I'll just share it. Like for me, um, it's something that I haven't been able to implement, right? Because I've adapted so much to this one way of being able to communicate online specifically that I'm so used to it. But I could do it offline for sure. But
Yeah.
that's why I was telling you I appreciate it because it's for me it'd be a skill that I'd have to build out. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Nah, I love it. I think like yeah, this is a whole deeper chat as well. But I
yeah,
think like
hard
I
one
told you when no, I told you when we spoke is that like I love your work ethic, you know, and how you put it all out there. But I think nowadays too is like you can find other people that work hard or whatever it might be, but like there can only be one Kareem. So whatever makes you you, I'm like that's what you have to like honor and like showcase. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So for me, I've always been like a joker. I've always like been been able to speak to people where they're at. So I was like, there's no way I'm gonna go and have the job that I have and try to be different because like that's not what got me like to this point. What got me to this point is I could talk to the youngest guy in the locker room, the oldest guy in the locker room, the CEO, and the coach. Like I treat them all the same, but I just tailor like the different parts that I have to, you know, talk to with them. Like I can't talk to a 20-year-old that's nervous about playing his first game, like a man that played like 200. You have to be different in how you approach them, but you're still the same person. You just have to like, you know, tweak a few things.
for sure.
So
Um,
be you, fam. Don't switch up.
yeah,
Be
man.
you.
So coming towards the end, I have two more questions, and then just to wrap up, I have some fun questions if that's cool with you.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
So we got a big event coming up next year, 2026 FIFA World Cup, being
Just the World Cup, eh?
the biggest event in the world, being hosted by Canada, United States, and Mexico. How you feeling? What are your thoughts?
That's surreal. I mean, I think it's gonna be a time too, because I think the men at that point they'll be playing some serious football. And if you can get with the 64 teams, if you can get a little bit of fortune with who can, I guess, in the group, like this could be really, 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 really enjoyable time. I think regardless, it's a win, but actually like seeing a first win for the men, um, and just what it could bring to a city. Like I'm so excited to see. Yeah, just this beautiful game being glorified here, right? Because I think it's glorified many other countries, if not every other country, it feels like. But here it's still like, yeah, when the men or women are playing, like I'll tune in, but it's different. World Cup fever is gonna hit, and you're either with us or against us type thing. Like it's one of those situations where you can't even ignore. So I'm excited to just see what the city looks like, what West Coast looks like at that point. Just the vibes that will be here in the summer when the biggest event in the world is coming to our country. Like it's beautiful.
Yeah. Do you think that buzz is gonna last even after and stay?
I
Be-
think it's gonna be like I think it's gonna be like wedding vibes, honestly. I think you're gonna like everything is gonna ramp up to it, and then there's gonna just be a little bit of a moment where you're like, oh, like a high, like wow, this really happened, and that will probably last for a little bit. I just personally don't think football is going anywhere in this country. Like I know everyone, I can understand why people might be skeptical about it. Like, for example, even the CPL, like, oh, till the World Cup comes and then it's done. Like, I really truly believe that the CPL will be a league that is around for a very, very, very long time. I think it's gonna get better. I think it's gonna grow. I think NSL as well. I think that's a situation where if the right people continue to back it and you push it forward, I just see it growing. So yeah, I don't look at it like 2026 the cutoff. I can't. I'm invested. I've sipped the Kool-Aid that I believe that this is gonna take off. And I'm just gonna bat that. I don't think there's any reason for me to think otherwise.
And the last question, actually, you mentioned this too a bit earlier into the interview, in regards to there not being a lot of color on the pitch back in the day, and even
Yeah.
the Canadian national team a few years back too. That was basically the same thing, and now it's a bit different. Um, there's a lot of color on the pitch now representing the Canadian national team, and you've mentioned some of the players as well, but. Um, what are your thoughts on that? And then I'll just ask the other question to that.
I think it's about time, to be honest. I think also too, I don't think this is coincidental that the specifically the men's program is having a lot more success now that the team that represents Canada is also the people that represent Canada. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not the select few or um, certain people that they want to put in positions to go and be successful. Like this has nothing to do with the fact that like I never got a cap. I would have loved to like pop in. And honestly, at a point, I thought I was decent enough to get a call into to camp. This has nothing to do with that. This has everything to do with actually, I think we're at a place now where the players that deserve to get a call up or deserve to be on the scene or deserve to get called into camp are. And I just personally think that's a beautiful thing because I know 86 in the 90s, 2000s, you can count on one hand like how many players that were maybe getting a sniff and a look. And now I just think it's a more fair representation of actually the quality that is in this country.
Amazing. And yeah, you know what? I'll just end it off there. That was great. So diving into the fun questions, Ronaldo or Messi?
Ooh. So I understand that Messi is a fantastic footballer and he's like a one in a billion. But like when you look at work ethic, longevity, the way that he altered his game to go from a winger to a striker, the goals that he scored, like I get it. I can't argue with Messi fans about Messi because it's Messi. But like my preference of just player, like CR7, I will never go and be like CR7 is a better footballer than Messi. I can't argue that. I just really like CR7. That's it. That's all it comes down to.
What about who are your top three players? It
This
doesn't.
man right here over my shoulder. Oh, this is the shoulder. TT. This guy is like, I'm an Arsenal man till I die. But Thierry Henry has to be up there. Zinedine Zidane is a different type of player. Um, I'll put him there because he was a captain and like the reason why I wore number four. And just like Patrick Vieira being 6'4" but having feet like he's 5'4". He was like Yaya Toure before Yaya. Like this guy was just a different type of guy. So I had to put him in there in that mix. So I guess yeah, French players are the ones that was resonating with me.
French ballers.
French
Um,
ballers are really African ballers, but that's for another day.
yeah, yeah. What, what what about top three favorite teams across three different leagues aside from the Canadian Premier League?
So top three teams across three different leagues. So
Yeah.
I'm Arsenal till I die, even though we haven't won. And I think I saw something the other day, like Rooney went bald, grew his hair back, then went bald again, and won 16 trophies, and retired and got into coaching, and Arsenal still haven't won an EPL title, and it hurt me. But I'll say Arsenal. I've always like I can't call myself a Real Madrid fan. I've always enjoyed like watching them play and just the stars that they assemble and bring. There's just something about it. And like them in all white in Champions League is just like it screams victory, you know? Um, hmm. And then another league. Oh, that's tough, you know. Let me see. This is so random, but my cousin in England will understand this. Like, you know when you just have random teams you play with in FIFA and then you end up following them?
Hmm.
That's Mainz 05 for me in Germany in the Bundesliga. Like I I would just keep picking this team in FIFA and then I end up like tracking them and following them. But so obviously there's like Bayern Munich, that's amazing. But Mainz and in the Bundesliga I've always enjoyed. But that's like a recent one. That's probably over the last 15 years, I'd say.
All right. Last two. Favorite music.
Bro, I listen to literally everything. Um, but
Go-to,
if I
like,
had to,
yeah.
pardon?
What's your go-to?
I would say now probably like neo soul. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I think not so much R&B, but just like that certain sound and like certain tracks. Like yeah, I would say neo soul probably. Just depends on the day though. Certain days depends on what my son wants to hear too. Like sometimes it's like old school Jay-Z. Like it doesn't. I don't know. I listen to everything.
Yeah. Well, the last one, because I'm feeling kind of hungry too right now. But what's your favorite food dish?
Bro, I said a couple years ago, Kareem, I was like, when I moved back home, I was like, yo, I don't know what the big deal about oxtail is. People are like, yo, they'll slap their mom for oxtail. And I was like, yo, it's all right. I remember saying this. And at the time, I don't know if it was God or what, but like I've been trying specifically Potluck's oxtail, and it hits my soul, man. Every single like at least once a week I'm brushing it. Once a week I'm like, yo. And the craziest part, my 2.5-year-old son does the same thing. Like he has the same meal that I have. Like we just cut it in half, but this guy like spoon and I'm like, yo, something for the soul. So it has to be my favorite meal. Like I used to say like chicken parm. I'm like, nah, oxtail for the win. Rice and peas. If you want to throw a thing on the side, no problem. But like regardless, yeah, that's a must.
A little bit of coleslaw, some.
The coleslaw, whatever, steamed veg, whatever. But yo, yeah, that's the one.
Well, Jordan, this was a pleasure. Full circle moment. I
It
just,
was, bro. I appreciate you, man, taking the time, but also being accepting, bro. I don't know what happened. I know it was me. I think I faded by accident and got busy, but I'm so glad we were able to do this and like have the full circle moment.
well, yeah. Thank you again for taking the time for being on the One Soccer Nation podcast.
Thank you, bud.